The night the storm struck the city, a woman lay silent in a hospital bed, her beauty frozen in time, her chest rising and falling only because of the machines that kept her alive. She had been in that bed for 20 years, untouched by the sun, unaware of the seasons, trapped in a prison of sleep. Her name was Isabella, the wife of one of the most powerful billionaires in the country, Richard Grayson. Once the darling of society, admired for her grace, her heart had stopped beating properly on a fateful night 2 decades ago after a tragic accident. Though the doctors managed to keep her alive, they whispered behind closed doors that she would never wake again. But Richard never gave up. He turned one of the wings of his mansion into a private hospital for her, surrounding her with nurses, specialists, and the best equipment money could buy. Still, nothing changed. Days turned into years, and the woman he loved became nothing more than a memory that refused to fade. People told him to let her go, but he couldn't. Every morning, he kissed her forehead as though she could feel it, and every night he prayed to a God he no longer believed in for a miracle. The miracle didn't come, at least not in the way he expected. It began with a boy named Samuel. He was only 16 when his mother, Clara, was hired as a maid in the Grayson mansion. They were poor, struggling to pay rent after Samuel's father abandoned them. Clara begged for the job, and Richard, seeing her desperation, agreed. Samuel often followed his mother to the mansion after school, sitting quietly in the servants' quarters, doing his homework. He wasn't supposed to roam the estate, but one evening, curiosity got the better of him. He wandered into the forbidden wing, the place everyone called the sleeping ladies' room. Samuel froze when he saw Isabella. Her face looked like porcelain, her skin pale but untouched by age, as though time itself had chosen to wait for her. He stood there, staring, when he felt something, an odd pull in his chest, almost like recognition. He whispered, "Do you ever hear people talking to you? Do you ever want to wake up?" Of course, there was no answer. Yet he swore her fingers twitched, just slightly, as if responding. From that day forward, Samuel began sneaking into her room. At first, it was just to talk about school, about how other kids bullied him for being poor, about his dreams of becoming a doctor. He told her everything he couldn't tell anyone else, because she couldn't judge or laugh. Then he began reading to her novels, poetry, even silly jokes he found online. Something in him believed she was listening. One evening, his mother caught him there. Instead of scolding him, Clara watched quietly. She saw how he looked at Isabella, not with pity, but with warmth. She remembered the doctors saying Isabella's brain showed faint activity, but no one knew if she was aware. Clara didn't stop her son, she let him continue. Weeks passed, then months. Samuel made it a ritual. He played her favorite music, he brushed her hair, he even painted her nails. The nurses smiled at his innocence, but Richard noticed. At first, the billionaire was furious. He confronted Samuel, his deep voice thundering, "You are not allowed here. This is not a game." Samuel, terrified yet bold, said, with respect, "Sir, she's more alive when someone talks to her. I can feel it." Richard almost threw him out, but something in the boy's eyes reminded him of his younger self, hopeful, stubborn, unwilling to give up. Against his better judgment, he let Samuel stay. And then, the impossible began. One night, Samuel was reading aloud when he saw her eyelids tremble. His heart pounded. He ran to get the doctors, but by the time they arrived, she was still again. They dismissed it as a reflex, but Samuel didn't believe that. The next day, he returned with more determination. He started learning about therapies on his phone, practicing physical stimulation techniques, trying to engage her muscles gently. He researched brain recovery, spending hours at the public library. Slowly, he began to apply what he learned, always whispering encouragement, "You're stronger than this. Come back. We're waiting." Richard watched in silent awe. For 20 years, no doctor had made progress. Yet this boy, this maid's son, was doing what science could not. Isabella's hand began to twitch more often. Her breathing patterns changed when Samuel spoke. One morning, while holding her hand, he felt her squeeze back, weak, but real. He cried, clutching her fingers, whispering, "I knew you could hear me." The doctors finally admitted she was showing signs of awakening. Hope flooded the mansion for the first time in decades. Richard, who had nearly turned into stone with grief, found himself smiling again. But the journey was far from over. The challenges came like storms. Isabella's body was frail after 20 years of stillness. Every small movement was painful, every breath a battle. At times, she slipped into unresponsiveness again, and Samuel would sit by her side through the night, begging her not to give up. Clara worried for her son, fearing his heart would break if this ended in tragedy, but she also saw the fire in him, the fire of someone who had finally found purpose. Months of struggle followed, but Samuel's persistence never wavered. He sang to her when her breathing faltered. He told her about his day when her eyelids fluttered. And then, one morning, as sunlight streamed through the curtains, Isabella's eyes opened fully. She blinked, confused, weak, but alive. The room erupted with cries of joy. Richard fell to his knees, clutching her hand, tears running down his face. "Bella! Bella, it's me. I've waited so long." She struggled to form words, her voice hoarse, but her gaze fell on Samuel. "The gee boy," she whispered, as if recognizing the voice that had guided her through the darkness. Samuel's tears spilled freely. It wasn't the end, but a beginning. Isabella's recovery took years of therapy, but she was never alone. Samuel became like family, his bond with her unshakable. Richard, humbled, funded Samuel's education, and the boy who once mopped floors in the mansion grew into a brilliant doctor, specializing in neurology. People called it a miracle, but Samuel always shook his head. It wasn't a miracle. She just needed someone to believe in her, someone who refused to let go. The story of Isabella's awakening spread far beyond the mansion. It became a symbol of hope, teaching the world that sometimes, love and persistence can reach where science cannot. And in the end, the boy who had once been invisible to the world became the light that guided a woman back to life. For 20 years, Isabella had slept. But it only took the voice of one determined boy to remind her heart how to live again.